Wanna live good, you gotta work for it. Everything I gotta had to work for it. Wanna live good, you gotta work for it. Work for it, work for it.
Hey, I'm Creed with Defiant Fit. I just got done wrapping up 4 sets of dumbbell rows where I'm kneeling down on a bench. I know there's different ways to do this. I've always done it this way. I've tried it the other ways. I've seen other trainers do on videos on the internet. And I gotta be honest with you, this is the one where I can load my lats the most. And if you don't know already, so you're working the big beefier part of the back muscles. You're kneeling down on the bench, as you'll see just here in a minute. And you're just simply bringing that dumbbell up towards your ribs and towards your hip. If you come up too high, you're gonna end up working some of the upper back muscles. And if your elbow floats out too much, you're gonna also work the upper back muscles. So what you wanna do is pull right into your ribs, right into your waist with the dumbbell. I'm using straps, and I know what you're thinking. Come on, old guy. The cool thing is VersaGrips. Okay. I do have a knockoff pair of VersaGrips, and I like them just fine for shrugs. I like them for when I'm doing like Romanian deadlifts and stuff like that. When I'm rocking and rolling on some dumbbell rows, I still love the straps. You got the free hand, you wrap them up, you do that final kind of hook around and squeeze it down, and you're just locked in and you're just rocking. One more thing that I do on these that'll help you, I think, helps me. I go down as far as I can, as long as the lat is still engaged. Don't go down to the point where everything dumps onto your shoulder, but go as far as you can, as long as the lat is still tight and engaged. As I go down, my hand typically kind of goes like this a little bit. Somewhere in that range. And as I come up, I'll do the opposite. So my outside of my hand is kind of coming in, you know, like those Kung Fu guys, right? It just lets me keep my elbow riding closer to my body naturally. And it just lets you load that lat up. A couple more things. I put one knee on the bench. As with pretty much every exercise, I'm going to try to get a little bit, you can't see it very well, but a little bit of an arch in the back. Never hump it. All right, you'll see some guys getting in there doing that stuff. You will destroy your middle vertebrae. The stuff between like below your shoulder blades, but not quite to your lower back. Always keep a little arch in there. And keep your shoulder blades back. Now you can let them roll a little bit if you're disciplined at the bottom, but make sure you pull them back into place on each repetition. If you can't do that, just go about a 90% extension so you keep everything in place. And when I'm down there on one knee, I sink into it. And so it's almost like a 3-point stance for a football lineman, right? My butt's gonna be several inches lower than my shoulders. So I've got that angle and I've got that arch, and I open everything wide open. Get that standing leg off to the side and behind me. You'll see this in the video. And it just opens it up. All you need to think about is squeezing through that lat muscle. I'm doing the 2 to 3 second repetitions, both directions. So I'm doing everything I can to squeeze that up for 2 or 3 seconds. Give it a big half-second squeeze at the top, all the way down for 2 or 3 seconds until I reach that point where, you know, just before the lat would disengage, tiny pause and squeeze it back up. I'm just finding this loads the muscles fairly inhumanly. It can just devastate. I do this on most exercises, all exercises at this point. And one, it absolutely loads up and devastates the muscle. And 2, it just protects your joints. Every now and then, right when I was younger, that was a long time ago, before you were born, we used to lift super heavy. And, our goal was to get huge and get strong. And I don't even want to talk about the weights we did. Worrying about form, what is form? We don't care. We just want the weight up. And you'll eventually destroy every body part you have. What I'm focused on now today, these days, is to work those muscles hard, keep them toned, keep them developed. Now, I'm not going to get huge in my 60s. I know that. But you might, if you're in your 20s. You can do this without lifting super heavy weights. You don't get to brag or impress people, except maybe for the way you look. For the rest of us, I'm here to help you stay toned up, developed, and not destroy those joints. And I promise you, these slow motions with that half-second squeeze at the bottom and top, they're just devastating. You'll see what I mean. But you have to mentally focus on each muscle group as you're doing it. And I need to wrap up this intro. We're probably going to stop right there. Just watch for the details, and I'll try to point them out as we go through the actual exercise. Oh, I did forget. I was still doing what I call the high-low or heavy-light sets. And I find this keeps me personally more disciplined. And so I'll do a little warm-up, right? And then I'll do a light set. And I'll do it as slow and clean as I just can do. And of course, I'm doing both sides, not at the same time. And the next time, I'll go with a heavier set. And I'll still do them as slow and clean as I possibly can. Back to the light set. This is where you really focus mentally and squeeze when you're doing it in every motion. And then back to the heavy. What's heavy and light? Light is something that you can do really immaculate reps with, say for 12 to 15 reps, somewhere in that range. It doesn't matter. I don't count reps. Okay, so that's the other weird thing. I really don't count them. I just keep squeezing until I cannot do a clean rep anymore. That's what I call failure. That's where the set ends. Then I get a couple minutes to rest and go again. But just to help you get a perception, 12 to 15 reps is probably lighter. And don't think light is easy. Light hurts really bad. And then a heavy set might be anywhere from 6 to 10 reps. And so you might start off at 10. And by the time you wrap around to that next heavy set, it might be down to 6 or 7. And you'll see what I mean if you try this. Let's get on with the actual exercise. Dumbbell rows. Come on, we all love these things. Let's talk about some form. I like to have a leg up on the bench, but if you notice, that leg on the bench is not vertical. I'm really sunk in on this position. So I get my standing leg behind me and off to the side. I make sure I get a big arch in the back, at least as much as I can, and I square up my shoulders to the wall facing my head. And I go ahead and squeeze this thing up. Now, I used to really jerk these things, I'll be honest with you. And I'm down to doing these 3-second motions, 2 to 3 second motions on these, and squeezing those lat muscles in both directions. You squeeze hard for a half second at the top, and then you try to keep that horrific tension all the way down. Now, as I'm going down, I kind of let my palm, my thumb, if you will, rotate toward the center of the bench. And then as I pull up, I like to bring that rear part of the dumbbell at a small angle. And what that does is it lets me pull more with the lat, and it lets me keep my arm close to the side of my body. Now I'm going down as far as I can, as long as that lat is engaged. I'm not jerking, I'm not bouncing. Now certainly it takes a pretty strong squeeze to get it up. And you can kind of see how that dumbbell rotates there. I try to keep my hips well below my shoulders, and that angle lets me really isolate that lat. I never hump my back, I keep that arch in there. Now we're squeezing through the lats. Again, we used to use weights that were double or triple this amount. And I don't think I've ever felt more lat work in my rows, my dumbbell rows, than I do now. Doing this slow, purposeful squeeze all the way up and using your lat as a big elastic brake all the way down, give it a half-second squeeze at the top. And that squeeze is not really coming through the arm. That is coming right through the lat. And that is just stinging. And you want to keep that nice tight stinging all the way back down as you're heading down. I like those 2 to 3 second motions, a lot of control, and very purposely using those lat muscles. It's pretty difficult to get the arm completely out of it. I'm using straps, but with the straps, focusing on that specific muscle group, those lats, and using a lot of control and very slow, concise, purposeful motions, big extension at the bottom. As long as the lat stays engaged, go all the way down and let that lat pull it back up and squeeze it again. Failure. What is failure? Failure is when you can no longer do this motion at this pace with this squeeze and this control going down any longer. If you find that you've shifted your whole body one direction or another, or you're having to give it like a big archer rotation at the top, so here it just squares up. If you start doing a huge rotation, you know what I'm talking about, at the hip, then you are no longer able to do a clean rep and get out of there. Just back off, give yourself 3 minutes, and come back at it and go at it again. These are punishing, I promise you, even though you're not going to get to use the huge weights anymore. Squeezing up through that lat with that very slow motion, pinching it at the top, is just going to do you a world of good, and you're going to love these things.
Yeah. Work for it. Everything I got, I had to work for it. Yeah. Living good, a hell of a night. But I had to work for it.